Hello, this is the Creation Care Network gathering for Monday, June 12th, 2023. My name is Heather Barta. I am the coordinator of Province 5. So the provinces 4 and 5 gathered together to talk about creation care. Today's topic is being recorded because it is demystifying resolution writing and submission. So if you are interested in working on resolutions for your diocesan convention, or perhaps looking forward to your provincial synod or general convention, this is a place to start. We will be focusing on diocesan conventions, but if you have any questions about resolutions, start here and then you can ask us more questions. I'm thrilled to have with us today Mary Abrams and Edward Lassane, who will take it away now and explain everything that you need to know about resolutions.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Mary and I, during our first phone conversation, discovered that we have a lot of similar experience with regarding resolutions at the level of the diocese for annual conventions of our respective dioceses, because she and I each served on our respective resolutions committees for our dioceses for a number of years. She's the chair of hers, and I've been on mine for 7 or 8 years. And I've also submitted 2 resolutions to my annual convention and gotten them approved. And she's been a deputy to general convention before, which I have not. But we have similar experience and some different experiences in writing resolutions and helping other people write resolutions, specifically for their annual conventions of their dioceses. So we put together this 13-point list that we hope is kind of basic but helpful, and to anybody who would consider preparing a resolution on the subject specifically of creation care, environmentalism, particularly and specifically someone affiliated with this creation care network. But these, these rules or these guidelines could apply to anybody who is thinking of preparing a resolution for their annual convention. So we're going to take turns, Mary and I. I'll take the first 2 points. I think the most important early step you can take is to research previous resolutions on similar topics to the one that you're thinking of writing a resolution about. And the easiest place to find previous resolutions is for the entire Episcopal Church, because the Episcopal Church online has an excellent archive of general convention, previously approved general convention resolutions, and also executive council acts. So it's a very searchable archive, and this list that Mary and I put together has links to those. And I'm going to be adding later to this list a link to a Google document that helpfully lists all of the creation care environmentalism approved resolutions from the past several general conventions. And that's a very targeted list regarding, the subject that we all care about right now, creation care. But since most of you who consider writing a resolution will first aim to submit your resolution at your annual convention of your diocese, you really also should make some effort to discover previously approved diocesan resolutions regarding creation care in general, and maybe even more specifically, the area of creation care that you're thinking of writing a resolution about. And that's going to vary. The process of researching that will vary certainly from diocese to diocese. My diocese has an excellent searchable online archive of previous resolutions, which makes it pretty easy. Yours may or may not. If it doesn't, I would say just pick up the phone and call your diocesan office and ask them where to go next or who to speak to find out. If only as a courtesy, but for other reasons too, you should not submit something that's almost identical to something that's already been approved. And you need to do a little bit of homework and research to find out, what's previously been approved. And so I think I can move to point 2, which is if you discover a resolution, particularly at the same level of the Episcopal Church, like at the level of your diocese, let's say, that has already been approved, I think it's wise and probably incumbent upon you to that doesn't mean you should not submit the resolution you have in mind, but I think you should make some effort to differentiate yours from work that's already been done. Perhaps unless the previous resolution is like 20 or 30 years old. But if it's only a few years old, the first thing I would do if I were you is to find out about the implementation of it and find out from people in the know in your diocese whether the implementation of that previous similar resolution has been satisfactory. It's very possible that it has been not completely successful, and that would be a really good place to start to figure out how to improve upon the implementation in your resolution. And you could think of a new implementation method, or in particular what are known as metrics, right? A new way to track the success or failure of the implementation to differentiate it from what was done before. Of course, you could also simply think of a different creation care topic or problem that you'd like to address and write a resolution for that. It would still be in the area of creation care, but it would automatically be different from the resolution that's already been approved. And also keep in mind that you can and you should, in the final version of your resolution, this is for somewhere down the road, if you keep pursuing this and working on it, in the end notes, you should cite resolutions, particularly at the diocesan level, but probably also at the level of General Convention, that are extremely similar to yours. It serves as an education for the delegates who will be voting on yours. It's an education for you. It's also a form of appreciation for the work that Episcopalians have previously done in this area. So I'll pass the baton to Mary now.
Okay, thank you, Edward. As we have here, it's good to have your research done. So have some articles that you can refer to, that you can get statistics from, that you can get scientific studies on to back up your resolutions. They may help. They will help with your support of the resolution and help others take it seriously. So Edward has given you several possibilities here: finding articles, consulting the periodicals, and such. Share these articles with people to help you at various stages. Like if you're not up on the science part of what you're wanting to say, there are other people around that can help you with that. The main focus of the resolution, don't be concerned about the formatting right now. That comes at the very end. Your resolution chair or somebody on the resolutions committee will help you with that. I always tell people because I'm chair of our resolutions and they want to write a resolution, you just write the resolution. I'll take care of the formatting. That's the last thing that you need to worry about. The rules change. Different dioceses have different ways of doing it. Your diocese probably will do it differently from the General Convention resolutions and so forth. So don't get bogged down in that. Use people around you to help you know what words to use, what phrases to use, what words not to use. I always find someone with a different background from mine, a different philosophical leaning than mine, to help edit and tell me when I'm using trigger words or when I'm using phrases that might cause people to want to not accept my resolution. So it's good to have different people reading and looking over your shoulder and helping you with this. Back to you, Edward.
Before jumping into point 5, there's actually something that I probably should add to this document in point 1, which is that there is an entirely different level of the Episcopal Church where resolutions can come into play and where resolutions can be submitted and debated on and approved, and that's at the provincial level, at the level of provincial synods. And I'm also on the resolutions committee for the Province 5 synod, you might say. And we did some good work at last year's Province 5 synod in helping shepherd some nice resolutions to our synod, which got approved. And synod resolutions can be fast-tracked if that's the intent of the authors, and if it's explained that way to the assembled deputies, they can be fast-tracked to the upcoming that same year's general convention, which is later in the same year. So so don't forget about provincial synod resolutions as well. But the synod doesn't meet as often as the diocesan annual conventions. So point 5 now. Learn the most basic requirements for submitting a resolution in your diocese. And by basic requirements, I mean really basic requirements, like what is the deadline? And there will be a deadline. You're almost certainly not going to be able to submit your resolution like a week before the annual convention. The deadline will vary, I'm sure, but I would be surprised if it's any later than a month before the annual convention, or really like even a month and a half before the annual convention takes place. Be aware of that. And also another very, very basic but crucial fact is who's authorized to submit resolutions to your annual convention. By the way, if it turns out that you are not authorized, you should not give up hope. You just need to partner with or ally with someone who is, or some organization within your diocese who is authorized. That's an obstacle that can be pretty easily overcome. And resolutions that have an impact on the finances of your diocese frequently have special basic requirements. They might even have an earlier deadline, submission deadline, but you should find that out pretty quickly unless you're absolutely sure that your resolution will not have a financial impact. However, I would say to take it for granted that your resolution will have a financial impact, because I know in Southern Ohio, in the Diocese of Southern Ohio, we sometimes deal with resolutions where the authors don't think there's a financial impact. And it turns out there is, and the net requires them to do some additional work. So, and more often than not, resolutions have at least a minimal financial impact. So be aware of that. And of course, I would hope, but it may not be the case, that you can find the most basic submission requirements on your diocesan website. And I really would hope that most dioceses have that really basic information available now on their website. Even if it is, though, available there, I would say early on, pretty early on, contact your diocesan resolutions committee. And that's what Mary and I each belong to, our respective resolutions committees for committee for our two dioceses, right? And they're very helpful people. The resolutions committee is not designed to shoot down your idea or to be critical of it. It's to help you develop it further and get it ready for submission. By and large, that's our role. And so therefore, even if you're satisfied with what you found online, you should start a dialogue, like particularly with the chair of the resolutions committee, and just give him or her, give them a heads up that you're thinking of doing this, and see if there's anything they want to share with you right away that might be specific to your diocese. You could also contact one or two other members of the resolutions committee. So I think now it's Mary's turn.
Thank you, Ed. Let me go back just a bit to what you were talking about. Who can? One of the, most any of your departments can, but your elected deputies to your convention can. So all of the your representatives from your parish. So there should be somebody really handy to you that's willing, that would be willing to submit the resolution to you. But it's always good to partner, like Ed said, and if you can find one or two departments to submit it, it gives you a little more backing. And I know in our diocese, and I know at General Convention, it is possible to submit resolutions at convention. It's not the wisest thing to do. It doesn't give people time to read them and study them and work on them, but they can be submitted if something comes up at the last minute and you want to do that. But particularly if it's got financial need in it, it's not going to, you don't want to do that because the budget committee is already met and already made the budget. So if you have financial backing, financial needs in your resolution, you want to get that in early before the budget people complete their work. So as I said, number 7 here is to reach out to friends in your diocese who have written. So get advice. People have done this before, but don't just send out to friends that you know will support it. I tend to be a little more left in my values, and I found a very conservative person that would proof all of our resolutions to help us find what would be negative to certain readers of the resolutions, and that helped us a lot to get resolutions through. So whereas it is good to find people who agree with you, that's not the only type of person that can help you. I think that's everything in on those two, Ed. I think we're ready.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll move on to 9, which Mary kind of included in point 8, which is fine. 9 is actually, what Mary just said, which is about reaching out to somebody that you're pretty sure will disagree with part or maybe even the entirety of your resolution. Their perspective, even if you mostly disagree with it, or will be helpful in terms of, it could be helpful in terms of maybe revising your resolution to try to increase support for it at your diocesan convention. Because I mean, if this is a respected leader, whether clergy or lay within your diocese who disagrees with you, you can be, even though you disagree with them, you can be sure there will be other people who think like they do at the diocesan convention. So if you can at least make a few changes to accommodate the views of this person, it may not change their mind to convince them to vote for it, but it might actually change the minds of some like-minded people at your diocesan convention. And I mean, yeah, it can be, the change can be very simple, just involve changing a few words. It could be more, the disagreement could be more substantial. But I will say this, I've gotten 2 resolutions approved at the diocesan level in Southern Ohio, and they actually both passed with about the same amount of support, like about 63% of the delegates voted for both of them. But I think the opposition, well, there was some pretty strong opposition to both of them. But it was only for the second one that I actually had the chance to speak to someone in opposing it before the convention. Although she reached out to me, I didn't go looking for someone in advance, but she reached out to me, and I was thrilled. I knew her, or I knew about her. I was thrilled to have the conversation with her, and our conversation did not result in my revising the resolution, but it did have an impact on my presentation of the resolution to the convention later. And I think I might have softened her opposition to it because I told her where I was coming. I told her more of the research background I had done on the resolution and why I thought it was necessary. Let's see, wait. Do I do 10 now as well? Yeah, I think I do. Too ambitious. Dioceses are pretty large and there are a lot of people. The longer that I'm active in the Episcopal Church, I realize that each level has certain strengths and weaknesses. That's why it's important to work at on multi levels. But I have more experience at the parish level with people coming up with ideas that are just too big and too ambitious for even the most robust parishes to carry out. But it's possible that a resolution that you have for a diocesan convention could, in certain respects, be too ambitious, or even if it's not technically too ambitious, the scope could be so vast that you're opening yourself up to more opposition than necessary. It might actually doom your resolution to not passing. So another way of revising it, if you have a chance to speak to someone in opposition, would be to narrow a bit the scope of it to increase the chance of it passing. So Mary, point 11.
Thank you, Ed. We've been talking about having people talking to others and getting their advice and their eyes on your resolution. It also gives you support. You're going to want support for your resolution at convention, people that will come to the mic and speak in favor of it. So the more people you can talk to and get their support, the better people are prepared to be able to support your efforts at convention. Number 11 talks about you need a title for your resolution, something brief but to the point. And then there are different types of resolutions. We try to avoid just passing a resolution just to pass a resolution. We try to have some kind of an action, even if it's just we encourage all parishes to, for instance, limit their use of plastic water bottles. It's not, it's something that people can do. It's a concrete thing. It's not a requirement. Nobody's going to police it. There's no penalty if you don't do it, but it does encourage people to do this. But there is a value of having a resolution that just speaks to the support of an issue. I know as chair of Peace and Justice, I often look to see what resolutions we've passed on certain issues so that I know what direction our committee can take. If our convention, either the General Convention or our diocesan convention, has never addressed an issue, then I need to go to my bishop and talk to him or her before we take any action. But if I can find a resolution that we've already said we support, then I'm free to act on it. So it does, resolutions in support there, like Ed's going to be adding past creation care resolution from General Convention. Some of those you may want to submit to your diocese and say, we want to support the General Convention's action in our diocese. It just makes a statement and it lets people in your diocese know where your diocese stands on certain issues.
Should I take the last one?
You can do that.
Right. Listening to Mary present point 12, I was reminded of something I had thought previously. It also applies to the too ambitious point, which is that in a certain sense, creation care is the largest possible kind of domain, or topic potentially to write a resolution about, because it involves every human being on the globe, but it involves the entire planet. And I was reading the excellent Google Docs list that I think Anne put together with all the previously approved, or at least the recently previously approved General Convention environmental resolutions, and a lot of them, are making very bold, large statements. And there are resolutions, but in spite of being resolutions, they veer more toward the direction of making statements, which is not a bad thing. They call for advocacy in every instance, I think, which is proper. And but when we're dealing with this kind of as vast as it could possibly be topic, it kind of lends itself to making statements. Oh, and the actions are sometimes very small, like, banning the use of plastic. It might seem small. So you might want to keep that in mind when you're trying to get the scope or the scope of your resolution right. And you're balancing the statement versus action part of it. In terms of point 13, the time cost, the longer I serve on my diocesan resolutions committee, the more I become cognizant of this. Mary and I are big believers in resolutions, within the Episcopal Church. That's proven by the amount of time and effort we've spent helping other people write resolutions, serving on our resolutions committees, and so on and so forth. But there are actually people, even people who make enormous contributions to the Episcopal Church and are undeniably leaders, either clergy or lay, who have doubts about the efficacy of resolutions. And I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but there are some people who think resolutions don't do a lot of good. Some people I know will even go so far as to say that they think they're kind of a waste of time. Of course, I totally disagree about that. But the reason why I'm mentioning that, even though that might seem heretical given the topic of tonight's presentation, is that if you're getting ready to submit a resolution that you believe in strongly, you also should be cognizant that there are people out there, respected Episcopalians, who think this about many resolutions or resolutions in general, and you want to be respectful of their time and the time of your the time of your annual convention, right? Because it does take time to take up a resolution, discuss it, debate it, vote on it, amend it. If it's the more controversial it is, the more likely there will be a longer discussion and more amendments proposed. I'm not against controversy, by the way. I don't want this document that Mary and I prepared to suggest that you should steer clear of controversy, but just be cognizant that if it's potentially more controversial, it might take even more time. And all of which leads me to believe that the final two things, C and D, is that you might want to wait a year to refine your thinking about your resolution if you're a little bit concerned about overburdening, the time-wise, this year's annual convention. You want to streamline it, make it more manageable in every sense of the word. And of course, this kind of an issue is certainly something that you could bring up to your resolutions committee, and they'll have a much better understanding, because all of the resolutions get fed for each year's annual convention, gets fed through the resolutions committee one way or another, and they'll be able to inform you, guide you, respecting this time cost issue, you might say. You want to maintain the goodwill of the people who are going to be voting on your resolution, and so therefore you need to be respectful of their time, basically.
Edward, let me address a couple of things that I saw in chat. Elliot asked, how do you present your resolution if you're not a delegate? You won't present it. The chair, at least in our diocese, I think it works this way. The chair of resolution reads the resolution. Then the presenter, if they are a deputy from their parish, can speak to it. It's possible that your bishop will give you voice to speak at convention. If that doesn't happen, then you've got to have somebody that's willing to come to the mic and speak to your resolution. Does that answer your question, Elliot?
Yeah, or the other thought is if, since our diocese does in fact have a environmental justice and creation care diocesan committee, it's possible that somebody on that committee could both preview the resolution and then also be able to argue for it.
Yes, you need to, it's good to have several people lined up to come to the mic and speak to your resolution. So if you are not a deputy and you are not able to get voice at convention, then that committee should be able to do it for you. Your deputies from your parish should do it for you, or any clergy, any deputy that you know can come to the mic and step up and speak to it. The other question, I can't remember what it was. Oh, how do you find somebody that may oppose your resolution? I think I just looked into that. I worked on another committee, and there was a priest, and she and I worked well together, even though we were not of common value, common leaning, and she did that and was very good about doing it. That may be more difficult. You may look toward the parishes that are known to be in more opposition to these types of resolutions, and maybe there's a friendly face that would be willing to help. I don't know if anybody else has some suggestions there. I just looked into it and found it to be invaluable to us.
In terms of who gets to speak, you know, on the floor of convention to or regarding resolutions, at least in Southern Ohio, the author, and if there are co-authors, at least one of the authors is automatically entitled to a certain amount of time early, usually at the very beginning, really, at the very beginning of the discussion, to present their to speak to it and to explain why they support it and are submitting it.
Heather?
I just wanted to thank you both. Are there more questions that you want to ask publicly before we stop the recording? Jeanette.
Isn't there supposed to be at least one person, like you said, you have a co-author? Isn't there supposed to be at least one person present at the convention? Did you just say that? And in case there was discussion?
So Jeanette, I'm going to summarize this whole discussion and close this out and stop the recording. So I want to do a public thank you to Mary and Edward. Yay! Thank you very much for doing this. So when we talked about this topic, what happened, the more Edward and Mary and I sort of processed through things, was we are working across provinces 4 and 5. We're working with 35 dioceses. So much of this is dependent upon your diocese. So I'm going to encourage you, if you want to move forward with a resolution, please talk with your diocese. This was only supposed to be a very basic, like, primer on, hey, diocesan conventions are coming up soon. You might want to do a resolution. Here's where you could start thinking about it. So that's what I just wanted to sort of summarize all that with. Mary and Edward had to work really hard to sort of be, okay, generally, we might want to talk about these things. So Mary and Edward, thank you for putting together this piece. If you are on the recording, viewing this recording later and you have questions, please reach out to Province 4 or Province 5, and we'll be happy to help you get connected with some support and people if that's what you need. So thanks for being here on this recording. Have a great day.